Okay. John, I'll give you a shout when just to move on to the next one. But thank you very much, everybody. My name's Dr. James Lane, and my doctorate was in system leadership. I have a particular interest in why schools really struggle to work well in collaboration, and if there's ways that school leaders can work well in partnerships. I'm not talking about that today. I want to focus on the curriculum, and if we all want a rich, varied, innovative, diverse, and inclusive curriculum that focus on wider outcomes for young people, then why don't we have it if it's something we all want? Oddly enough, I'm going to start with bird poo. May seem strange, but a few years ago in Washington, D.C., they were looking for solutions to the amount of bird poo on the Lincoln Memorial. Now, you may want to rush to a solution just by washing it off, but someone thought, actually, let's dig a little bit deeper. It was identified that the birds were drawn to the memorial to eat the spiders that gathered around the columns, and the spiders were there to catch the small insects that swarmed there at night. And the insects were there because of the lighting that was done during the evening. So the solution to the excessive bird poo problem was to change the rules of how the lighting was done on the Lincoln Memorial. Now, I use this as an example of why we can't talk about improvements in school curriculum without digging a little bit deeper into the constrictions of the system. Now, already today, most of the speakers have spoken about the education system. And we expect the system to do a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to system improvement. We talk about system leadership, system thinking, system improvement, the self-improving school system, system change, system solutions. But actually, you can see the definition there on the screen. The system is actually probably the biggest problem we have, and we're not manipulating the system to our advantage at all. What ends up happening is the system shapes the leaders, and the individuals act in ways that perhaps they shouldn't. If you just click forward, please, John. In reality, the system is just a web of interconnectedness, the DFE, Ofsted schools, other institutions and educational settings. But the problem is the system has no moral purpose. The system isn't ethical. We tend to think about the system as an enabler of improvements, but enables sets of outcomes, irrespective of the good intentions of the individuals who operate within the system. In reality, it's more likely to constrict behaviors and shape leaders over time into a way that they behave at odds with their own values, beliefs, and ethics. Most worryingly, the system produces sets of outcomes that we as individuals really do not want. A narrow curriculum, schools as exam factories, poor outcomes for vulnerable learners are just a few examples of the outcomes promoted by the systems. Now, academies aren't responsible for all of those things, but certainly some of those elements have been amplified by the academization in the last decade and a half. All of these outcomes, the narrow curriculum and exam factories and vulnerable learners struggling, are what we would identify as undesirable outcomes. Now, those scandals you just saw on the screen are scandals in themselves, and you'll be well aware of them. Now, I'm not saying that the individuals responsible for those shouldn't be held personally accountable, but within those, all of those scandals, there is a problem of leadership, and these people have acted in ways they shouldn't. If we go to the next, do go forward now, John, thank you. The education system, no, sorry, back to the blue one.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We have our own scandals in education. If you look at this, our accountability processes create a scandal around the way that we deal with our most vulnerable learners. And the last section on SEN learners was really interesting because it really reinforces this point. There appears to be a lack of moral accountability. Moral accountability. It just seems so bizarre, doesn't it? Now, this research in 2018 is just as relevant now as it was then. But what we know as individuals and what we do does not really change education system. All systems thinking research is very clear on this. In a majority of cases, individuals, even larger organizations, do not impact on the system at all. System improvement cannot be done by school leaders themselves. Even the best MATs or unions or groups like ours case, their unit of influence is too small. Now, it may upsetting to hear, but the work we all do as individuals and the benefits we get in a few isolated cases do not really bring about system-wide change. We can't fight the system from within, but we must change the rules. As they change the lighting on the Lincoln Memorial, we need to look at how the rules change. John, just go forward to the next one. So to try and bring about just sort of an idea of what we can be doing to try and change those rules, we can't fight the system. The impact we have at the system at this level is too low. We need to look at how we change the rules. John, just go forward to the next one. We spoke about Ofsted before, and people have spoken about John, just go forward to the next slide. Thanks. Ofsted's just gone through the big listen. As a consultation around changes to Ofsted, it is a really big system player. It sets the rules level. We need to be making sure that the system is impacted by the big system players. Direct instruction, retrieval practice, and adapting teaching are all examples of rapid, significant system change brought about by a player like Ofsted. The next thing we need to look at is the narrow and technical conceptualization of school leadership. The MPQs are limited. Most leaders do an MPQ, but actually they don't cover everything they need to. That report there by Big Education is really useful. I recommend that you read it. John, the last slide, please.
All right. Yep.
That's okay. Louise spoke earlier. I was really interested to hear Louise talk about curriculum design, and others people have spoken about it as well. We need to gather our forces around this. Now, there are organizations really doing good work around an innovative, diverse curriculum which incorporates wider outcomes. I would say we need to, and I'm just sorry, a bit of a cross-organization recommendation there. But Big Education is doing some really good work around this. And if we gather together to become less compliant as as a group of educationalists, to put pressure in places that can change the rules, then we can get a curriculum that our young people deserve.